Thank you, Chair. I beg to move that this House has considered trade union access to workplaces. Chair, if you are a working person in the UK, you have something to thank our trade unions for. Unions have fought to give us the minimum wage, parental rights, holidays, and sickness pay. With nearly 6.5 million members in the UK, trade unions are our largest voluntary democratic organizations. Every day, unions are on the front line, fighting poverty, fighting inequality, fighting injustice, and negotiating a better deal for working people. This role has never been more critical than today, as in work poverty is on the rise and zero-hours contracts are widespread. But a barrage of anti-trade union legislation over the past decade has meant that workers have found their inability to organize and take industrial action to challenge these injustices greatly restricted. Under existing legislation, huge multinational companies like Amazon and McDonald's can employ legions of low-paid, insecure staff, often in terrible working conditions, all whilst turning record-breaking profits. It is boom time for large multinational companies, but this success is not passed down to its employees. With British workers facing an uncertain and exploitative job market, trade unions are a perfect tool to make these workplaces fairer. Thanks for Honourable Member for intervening, an excellent point, and I will come to that point later in my debate, because the thing is, if you look after your employees, of course, they are happy, and they are more productive. And in the end, everybody wins. So, great point there. It is no exaggeration to say that working conditions at these large multinational companies are at times reminiscent of the deplorable practices of the 19th century. Workers have recounted urinating in bottles for fear of being disciplined for a toilet break. Heavily pregnant women report being refused permission to sit down for a break during 12-hour-long shifts. How can we allow this to happen in the UK in the 21st century? I have spoken to countless trade unions officials who tell me that despite the widespread desire for improved rights and conditions at work, efforts to unionize staff in these workplaces are often fruitless. In large part, this is because there are currently no rights of access for trade unions to enter the workplace and speak to workers for the purpose of recruitment. Workers at Amazon have had their shift patterns interrupted and randomized simply to prevent them from talking to union officials on the way into work. Union representatives visiting McDonald's across the UK to speak to workers about the benefits of joining a trade union are being routinely thrown out of stores, having their presence reported to senior regional managers. Chair, when I raised these issues in Parliament several weeks ago, but both Amazon and McDonald's responded by denying these practices were taking place in their stores. And I quote what McDonald's actually stated: "We strongly dispute the notion that we are asking people to leave our restaurants based on their membership of a union. If anybody comes into a restaurant with the sole intention of disrupting our people while they work, or customers while they eat, we would ask them to leave regardless of their reason for causing disruption." Doesn't this attitude sum up the problem with current legislation? The crucial work of our trade unions is simply a nuisance to these companies, getting in the way of their exploitative practices and profiteering. Current laws simply let them get away with it. Absolutely. Thanks to the Honourable Member for intervening. An excellent point, and I can't agree more than that. So absolutely right, what she's just said. Union members from the BWAFU have recounted stories like Mohammed's, a worker from North London who was excited at the prospect of working alongside his colleagues to improve basic things at work, like getting his shifts 10 days earlier so that he can actually plan his life. Because of these efforts, he was informed by management that he is banned from every McDonald's store in the area. I note that in their statement, McDonald's have not disputed this account. In their response, Amazon stated, "If you want a true assessment of our working conditions, just register for a tour at one of our fulfillment centers." A registered company sanctioned tour, effectively a corporate PR exercise, would hardly paint an accurate picture of working conditions at Amazon. Let the figures speak for themselves. From 2015 and 2018, a shocking 600 ambulance calls were made to Amazon warehouses. I have visited an Amazon warehouse in my own constituency in the past. The technology on show was indeed very impressive, but this hardly gives you an accurate account of what it would be like to work a 12-hour shift in the warehouse. Nevertheless, I am happy to take Amazon up on their offer of another visit. Would I be able to bring representatives from GMB Union with me? Because until now, many of them have consistently been denied access to the workplace. But, Chair, it is not just Amazon and McDonald's. These practices are widespread, particularly in poorly paid jobs. In their recently published report on the Intercontinental Hotel Group, Unite Union documented a workplace culture of fear and bullying, with management pressurizing low-paid staff into working for 8 to 10 days straight. IHG employees and IHG subcontracted employees have been routinely denied the right of freedom of association and have stood little chance of exercising their right to collective bargaining. I will. Yeah, I really thank Honourable Member for the intervention, and absolutely brilliant point, because it actually works for all stages in every sector, regardless of the size of your business. Because what happens is the large organizations, if they actually practice in this way, then it will filter down as well, because they are subcontractors. And actually it's their responsibility also to show them, the smaller businesses, what the large businesses are doing. You know, if they are doing the right practices, then absolutely they can actually filter that down to their subcontractors as well. And perhaps, you know, they can also have some kind of contract with the subcontractors, making sure that they are looking after their employees the way actually they do. So they have to set some kind of precedent. So thank you for the intervention. Union members are vulnerable and live in fear of reprisals from their employer. Bupa Care is one of the largest and highest profile providers of residential social care in the UK, and part of an international health group which serves approximately 32 million customers in 190 countries. They consistently refuse to allow Unison officials access to workplaces to speak with staff and members regarding union rights and representation. During 2017 and 18, Unison Northwest regional offices were banned from every Bupa Care workplace, despite assurances that visits could be conducted at the employer's convenience and with due regard to operational and safeguarding concerns and priorities, which I've just McDonald's mentioned about the disruption. So exactly what unions don't want actually disrupting the business at all. They give adequate time to come, and that's all what I'm asking for to legislation do. Of course, I'm pro-business, you know, I support trade, business and everything, but not at the cost of, you know, poor conditions at the workplace of employees. I am sure I do not need to remind the Minister that the UK is a signatory of the European Convention on Human Rights, Article 11 of which states that everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and to freedom of association with others, including the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests. Would he not agree that the examples I have listed here constitute a flagrant violation of this right? And if so, what does his department intend to do about it? But I don't want to simply use this debate as an opportunity to criticize existing practices, but also to propose a way forward. I hope the Minister will listen to my proposals, because it doesn't have to be like this. By expanding trade union access to workplaces, we can restore dignity and respect at work and put an end to exploitation and misery we see on the rise today. I am pro-business. As I said before, I want to see our businesses flourish, but this should not come at the cost of dignity and respect at work. An alternative is possible. We can look to places like New Zealand for inspiration, as well as evidence that the legislation that I am proposing works. Under the 2018 Employment Relations Amendment Act, trade unions there have far greater access to workplaces. Workers in New Zealand can speak to union representatives in their place of work, which has led to higher union membership, higher wages, and more just and fair workplaces. Under this legislation, all that is required is that the union provides a short period of notice that they will be visiting the workplace, allowing for management to add the extra staff member needed for the duration of the visit. This situation is beneficial for all involved. Disruption to the business is kept to an absolute minimum, whilst workers' legal and human right to join and form a union is properly adhered to. I thank the honourable friend for intervention, and absolutely, you're absolutely right, because I've been a union rep at my workplace before I joined the Parliament, and absolutely, the amount of cases I've been representing my colleagues is unbelievable, because there are a number of things the union reps actually can achieve, while working with the employer and of course, the workers there. And it's absolutely crucial and important. With the success of New Zealand in mind, I want to see similar legislation adopted in this country. Last month, I presented a private member's bill to this effect, which seeks to remove a number of restrictions on trade unions conducting business in workplace. I have received a lot of support, Chair, for this bill. From members, over 50 were willing to co-sign my bill. But to date, I have not been supported by a single Conservative or Liberal Democrat MP. Arguments against increasing the collective bargaining power of making or working people have long been discredited. It is a myth that strong trade unions drive down profits. If strong trade unions drive down productivity, why has the UK long suffered from a productivity gap, despite having the most restrictive trade union laws in Western Europe? In truth, a happy, well-respected workforce is also a productive one. The stories I have heard from union officials paint the opposite picture. Too many people in this country feel exploited and dispensable at work. If we are to transition away from a low-wage, precarious economy, increasing the collective bargaining power of our workers is critical. That is why I'm fighting to improve trade union access to the workplace. We need strong trade unions and a better deal for working people. Thank you. Minister giving way. I just want to emphasize that this debate is about actually before members actually join the union, not after the union, because the Minister is explaining exactly what actually after the members' rights. We're not talking about the members' rights here, so we're talking about before even employee become a member of the union. Thank you, Ms. McDonough. Very quickly, I would just like to thank all honourable friends who took part in this debate, and they made a very eloquent and excellent points, every one of them. In a very short, obviously a few seconds left, I just would like to respond to Minister's response. Basically, I'm very disappointed because 80–90% of his response was all about what actually union members can do rather than trade unions' access to workplace. And this whole debate, I totally appreciate, and that he's substituting on his colleagues' behalf, and I totally appreciate that. However, I would like to reiterate that if we can go back and have some real thinking about what we are actually proposing, and it is with some common sense on this side of the House. Thank you.